Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're playing my favorite ship in the game, Massachusetts B. Only comes around once a year, and this ship, even all these years later, is still my favorite. Although the up tiers are a little painful these days, if I'm being honest with you. The fun can still be had when we get those tier 8 games, and certainly if you're someone who plays modes like ranked or brawls, anything like that, it's going to be absolutely incredible. I love being able to push in with this ship, the fast cooldown heals, the solid main guns with a little bit poor accuracy from time to time. They're nowhere near as consistent as Alabama or certainly North Carolina, but we nearly dev-struck that Budyoni off the map just in a single salvo. These are still 406s, they still pack a massive punch. Alongside that, you have one of the better brawling hulls at this tier. You have great firing angles on your secondaries in particular. This is a big weakness we find on secondary ships where they gotta go so broadside to actually access most of their secondary DPM, which Massachusetts is still really good at. They're only 127, so they don't have a lot of pen. They certainly get through superstructures though, and they can light quite a few fires. A massive bonus though has to be said, it's the heal here, okay? 40-second heal cooldown. It may not have been quite the first ship to do it, but it was among the first, and it is so useful. You nearly have half uptime on your heal. 30-second action time, 40-second cooldown is amazing for brawling. Unfortunately, no hydro to help us on these torpedoes, but what we do get is one of the best torp belts in the entire game at 46% reduction. So even a Shinonome torp that is a Japanese destroyer, it hardly did any damage to us. It's so nice to have. We have some of the best maneuverability of all battleships in the game. 710 meter turning radius. So many destroyers even have worse turning radius. Cruisers as well. So it allows us to be so nimble in these brawls. Swinging out to fire our guns and then angling again. You can juke a lot of incoming damage too if you're able to predict when an enemy is going to fire. It's shocking how nimble this ship actually is. An amazing salvo in on that. Nelson 406s really are incredible. Secondaries helping us to finish off the Shinonome. Being able to engage multiple targets at once is the real benefit of having secondaries, as well as cleaning up for you when you miss the superstructure of the Lenin, getting us our double strike. The other best part about there's so many good things about this ship, okay? I'm sorry, I gotta talk about this ship, okay? Halsey, we get Halsey on this ship, okay? Double strikes getting us better detection, maybe not so useful when we're pushing in and brawling, but having the Confed bonus, which hopefully we can get as well, getting us another 20% reload on these main guns is very, very useful. One of the best brawlers in the game tier for tier. While we have some new ones like Ipiranga, for example, the new Pan American battleship line, their secondaries are stronger, certainly, but they don't have the DPM of Massachusetts, okay? That is something. The secondaries have a little more pen, sure, but 38,000 secondary DPM at 10 kilometers. That's the hitting DPM for Massachusetts, where Ipiranga gets 31k. It's going to pen a little bit more against battleships, sure, but we get more fires on Massachusetts as well. So it's not as much of an outright win for Ipiranga on secondaries, and I would certainly give the edge in damage output from the main guns to Massachusetts. Maybe not super controversial to say that, but I love the ability to have solid main guns still alongside a great brawler. The secondaries allowing us to engage multiple targets too is so useful. One of the worst feelings is pushing in this game, having your main guns almost finish off an enemy, or maybe not fully finish off, not do much damage to an enemy, and then they get a ton of damage into you again, and you gotta wait that 30 seconds to do any damage again. Having the secondaries helps so much in these brawling situations. Destroyers certainly as well. It allows you to apply a lot of pressure in the right areas of the map. It's not easy though, okay? There are downsides, and I have to mention that as well. For $37 US, it's, in my opinion, a pretty good deal, okay? I would gladly, if I was starting an account again, this is on my short list, top of the list for me to get on my account again. Something like Jean Bart also would be quite interesting. Alaska as well, these ships that were removed that are very strong. but Massachusetts would be first for me. So if you're interested in brawling at all like I am, consider this one. It is for real purchase, real money purchase only, not for doubloons, unfortunately. And as always, when it comes to value, that's totally up to you guys. But for me personally, I would be very interested in getting this ship again. The downsides, though, if you're concerned that this isn't necessarily going to be your experience with the ship, getting Halsey Confeds every battle is not my experience either, don't you worry. In fact, I had a bit of a tough time getting some good brawling clips with this ship. We still did okay, but getting in those tier 10 games, and certainly games with subs and carriers on your flank, you put yourself out there to be focused, okay? This isn't, oh no, I'm the YouTube guy who gets focused, okay? I've done my best to avoid that. It's just what happens when you push in a brawling ship on your flank when your teammates aren't in brawling ships, so they're playing a little further back, understandably. So you then are the closest to the enemy team. This is going to happen no matter who you are. If you push up, you're closer to the enemies, and therefore, the enemies are probably going to shoot at you, okay? Simple as that. And Massachusetts can do it in a tier 8 game like this one. It can even do it in tier 9 games. It's that strong. But against tier 10s, it gets a little tricky. And that's the real pain point of Massachusetts B. You're a bit at the mercy of the matchmaker. You don't have much range on your main guns. If you're interested in a more mid-range brawler, this is not going to be the one for you. 18 kilometers of range is serviceable, but in those up tiers, it's not quite enough, in my opinion. The other thing is going to be that accuracy at range, the shell velocity at range. Even myself, who has played a ton of Massachusetts already, it still surprises me coming back to this ship just how slow these AP shells are. You have to give yourself so much more lead than a normal battleship. Tirpitz even, like all of these tier 8 battleships are going to have so much faster shell travel time than Massachusetts, North Carolina guns. Which becomes a pretty big pain point for a ship like this one that doesn't have the best or most consistent dispersion and not the best range. So those up tiers are a massive problem with this ship. And I need to stress that, as it's very difficult to find opportunities to push in these up tiers without getting purely focused down early on. Here we will see an example where even a tier 10 game, we can push in a little bit on our flank. Of course, when it comes to brawling, you gotta isolate fights. You gotta find opportunities to take 1v1s, and use island cover is most important with that. Here, the carrier's with us a little bit, unfortunately, but Shima Torps on our flank is something we gotta be very careful of. Fortunately, our Torp protection helps us out a lot. Massachusetts versus Massachusetts Brawl here. You'll love to see it. Both of us pushing in. It's a superstructure battle at this point, and the superstructure is much smaller than we see on things like Georgia or certainly Iowa, even things like Montana, Rhode Island, right? It's a very small superstructure, but you still can take quite a lot of damage into it, so it's a little tricky on knowing how to position yourself in these brawls. You need to give enough broadside to use your secondaries, of course, but as I mentioned, the firing angles are really good already. It's like 22 or 23 degrees forward and backwards to fire all of your secondaries. Very easy to accomplish. Your guns are a little bit worse. To fire everything forward, it's 34 degrees. Backwards is 36 degrees. But a big benefit of Massachusetts that I personally take issue with from just like a game design concept is your Citadel's waterline to below water. So this enemy Massachusetts, he's going broadside, which, you know, probably a mistake, right? If we're being honest. And while we're getting some full pens, it's not as devastating as you might think it should be. The advantage of a Tirpitz, right, that we looked at a little while ago, I think that was last week, was that it has turtleback, so you're not taking the Citadels in those situations. But Wargaming seems to have put a lot of Citadels below water these days. So is that really much of an advantage anymore for something like Tirpitz? I don't know. It would make this ship a lot harder to play, of course, the Massachusetts. But I think we should have more vulnerable broadsides. Ships shouldn't be able to just go flat broadside in brawls and get away with it as easily. At least in my opinion, okay? Maybe a little biased here, but it's a little annoying, okay? At least, though, if you're the one playing this ship, you can get away with it sometimes. So try to worry a little bit more about positioning your ship around islands. If you get caught out, you may or may not take massive damage. At longer ranges, the plunging fire will get through to your Citadel. I'll show you guys the armor towards the end of this video, of course. But but overall the armor is quite solid. It's one of the tankier battleships at tier 8 personally, but maybe a lot of that is made up for by the healing. You have so much healing and you can guarantee you get through it. For the most part, you're going to get through your heals thanks to that cooldown. Reasonable turret traverse here. It's not the best, but 36 degrees is very solid, I would say, base. And that allows us to turn and get our guns off on that destroyer, and then turn back before we're even reloaded and get our guns towards this Iparanga. Not every battleship has the best turret traverse. This one is middle of the road, I would say. It is good enough that I'm not really complaining about it too much. Maybe that comes down to that maneuverability. Again, it's light cruiser, some destroyer level maneuverability with our turning circle radius there being 710 meters. It's ridiculous. Rudder shift time of 15.7 seconds is not amazing, but given the turning circle radius, every quarter or half rudder you're getting feels like so much more because your turning circle radius is just that tight. I will say the Halsey Confed buff is pretty addicting on this ship. 30-second base reload feels solid enough. Certainly a tier 8 on 406s, 9 406s, it's great. But when you get that Halsey Confed buff, it is really, really fun. And I find it easier to activate Halsey Confed on Massachusetts and these secondary brawler battleships than, say, something like a Montana, something a lot more vanilla battleship, because I think the secondaries add a lot of supplemental damage to targets that may not be in your gun sights, right? You got to turn your turrets or something like that. Ships pop up briefly, maybe a little bit of chip damage into destroyers, fires, anything like that that can be added by these secondaries. At least it feels like we're getting a lot more consistent activations of Confederate, which of course you need to damage multiple ships to a certain percentage. And I guess that would make sense that your secondaries would help you out a lot with that. As for positioning your Massachusetts, you really do have to get close range with this one. There's no getting around it. You have to play closer. You really can't afford to snipe with this thing. Because even though I'm singing its praises, I've tried to tell you some of the weaknesses too. I got to show you some of these salvos where Baltimore just gets away with going broadside. Blucher got hit a little bit, but not insane. We're getting a lot of broadsides here. We want to be finding these flanks. I want to push up to islands where I can apply a lot of pressure to cap zones or to where cap zones would be, but also islands that allow me to take cover from a lot of incoming fire. Perhaps islands that help me with concealment, right? Things like this. Iparanga pushes up. There we go. We're getting the citadels. Finding broadsides like this is really crucial to getting good damage out of Massachusetts. And if they want to dig me out of this position, they have to come brawl with me, right? That's the other element of finding good position. Oh my goodness, look at that dispersion. It control you, okay? It's not all perfect, okay? It's not a perfect ship, but it's still really fun in my opinion. They have to push us. They have to push us and brawl us if they want to get us out of this position. At least if they're not a carrier, right? The carrier can come click on us. Fortunately, he's not in this one, so it allows us to apply a lot of pressure. And they've kind of given up this flank at this point, so it's time to traverse the map. Do not push spawns, right? As we're talking about a lot in these games where we're pushing. We don't want to push spawns, so I'm going to push towards the middle of the map and try and help our team out there a little bit more. But this is kind of the standard Massachusetts play. Not overcommitting too hard early, trying to always find an easy out to an island to block a lot of incoming fire. Maybe let us go dark, allow us to heal up a little bit. Well, the heal allows us to take a lot of risks and heal through a lot of damage. You still can get burst down before you get through all of your healing if you're not careful. Just full sending open water, it's not going to happen here. It's not Release Libertad, for example. You still have to play a little bit cautiously. But I love that this ship can play quite aggressively still in 2025. And the package here really does seem to suit my playstyle. I want something that has punchy guns. I want something that can brawl and not feel like I'm going to die very quickly or I'm playing my ship wrong. I want something that feels like it can apply a lot of pressure to an enemy team on a flank. And that's what Massachusetts brings. It brings the right combination of healing, tanky hull, reasonable concealment, reasonably consistent main guns that hit quite hard. A lot of secondary battleships just don't seem to have very satisfying main guns. This retains the 406s. Maybe not the best dispersion all the time, but they do hit hard enough. In fact, while I was playing this ship, I realized a lot of my damage came from the main gun still. Yes, it's a secondary brawler, but it's not a secondary brawler where you're getting half or more of your damage out of secondaries and fires. This is a ship that a lot of that main damage is still coming from the guns, and you're just getting some supplemental damage to help you out in these brawls from the secondaries. And the heal, letting us play in these more aggressive positions, so much easier. It's my favorite ship still. It's got a lot of weaknesses. It's got a lot of problems with up tiers. It's going to be frustrating in those tier 10 games with carriers, with subs. It's hard. If you're pushing your ship out in front of your entire team, it makes sense that the enemy team would focus you down. You're closer, easier to hit target. And that's going to be the difficulty of Massachusetts. $37 US to me seems like a great pickup from Black Friday. Unfortunately, it's only available for real money purchase, not available for doubloons this year. Wasn't last year either. They gave away a lot of doubloons this year, so maybe that makes sense. Would have been nice to see it back for some doubloons, though, I gotta say, Wargaming. A lot of people are interested in these ships. Jean Bart B, like we're firing at. Massachusetts, again, getting that Halsey Confed. Seems to happen right at the end of games, though, unfortunately. And Alaska as well, which we've got to take a look at soon, too. Doubloons would be nice for the people that have been saving them up, but like I said, if I am going to restart my account completely fresh, this would be the 1 or 2 premium ships that I would actually want to buy personally. But don't feel too bad if you're not going to get it this time around. Honestly, Wargaming's got a track record here with Black Friday, and it seems like they're bringing Massachusetts, Jean Bart, Alaska, and Azaccio back each time. So waiting a year, and you can have another opportunity at it. This being one of my favorites and most played ships in the entire game, I have tried many a different builds on it, and honestly, I'm still playing around with builds. These secondary brawling battleships, it feels like I want every single commander point I can possibly get my hands on. Here's the build that I was running towards the end of the video, or at least I guess it would have been the first game that I showed you here. Fire prevention plus all 5 heals, and then of course going for secondaries and AR. But you could use improved repair party readiness. It'd be really nice. Our HP here is decent, but not a huge amount. So every percentage here is pretty quick to get. You get a lot of cooldown reduction. I've played it and gotten under a 30-second cooldown on a heal that lasts over 30 seconds. More than half uptime on our heal if you take this one and you tank a lot. Concealment. I would love to have better concealment, allowing me to push in easier, maybe surprise some people with some broadsides more. But fire prevention is really important, as is getting all these heals. It's hard to choose. Having this AA defense and ASW expert, further consumable cooldown. Your damage control is on a long cooldown, so having this is really nice for those fires. Vigilance, buffing that torp protection even further. We have such great turning circle radius and maneuverability that seeing those torps just a little sooner actually might mean you dodge them a lot easier. If you're running full conceal, things like brisk allow you to get into position sooner. Turret traverse would be also quite nice. While it's serviceable here at 36, getting it below 30 seconds would be great. Something like gun feeder would be awesome to swap to HE for those destroyers, for example. Demo expert, get a little more fires out of our secondaries, as they do not have the highest fire chance. Consumables, I wouldn't necessarily get that. Preventive maintenance was one I used to take a lot, since secondaries would break rather often, and that felt pretty bad. Now that they've changed module damage, you still might get some good value out of this one, but I'm taking emergency repair specialist, mainly to get our damage control back a little bit sooner. You could even go with like a more damage focused build, super heavy AP, furious, close quarters combat. A lot of these things work. I find myself getting a solid amount of damage when I'm at closer ranges. I just want to live a little bit longer, right? I want to get all heals. I want to get fire prevention. That's at least what I've found to be a little more consistent. But depending on the mood, I might swap over to things like close quarters combat and get that 10% better reload. As for the equipment here, we still want to keep those secondaries alive. Our main guns seem to have pretty good armor, so I'm not noticing much there. If you have the coal to throw at it, Damage Control Party Mod 1 is actually really, really good. Getting you upwards of 30 seconds of immunity time is crazy in brawling situations. You just won't get relit on fire for a very long time then. Something like secondary mod here. This is one of the reasons that these American secondary brawlers are so powerful. You don't have accuracy option. You just don't have an option to slot accuracy mod here. It's in the 6th slot for American battleships, and we don't get access to that unfortunately here, so it may lead to a little bit more of those wonky salvos. But it freely allows us to take secondary battery mod here without feeling too bad about it. Damage control system and prop mod, it's up to you. If you're finding yourself dying to fires, take damage control system. If you find yourself able to dodge a lot of incoming fire thanks to prop mod, which I really personally like, then you can run prop mod. Of course, wanting concealment as well. Man, it's still my favorite ship. I had a tough time finding some of these brawling games for you guys, in randoms in particular. It's hard. It's hard to run this ship in randoms against tier 10. 38 mil deck armor is great, but upper belt being 32 here, reasonable superstructure, you can die pretty quick against tier 10s. They're very powerful. Having that Citadel be waterline is great, and actually a little below waterline maybe. But you notice how plunging fire here, 16 mil here, 25. Plunging fire towards the center of your ship. A lot of battleships will be able to Citadel you. Close range though, very hard to Citadel this thing. Making Turtleback on something like a Tirpitz feel a little bit, I don't know, is it really an advantage anymore? I'm not sure. Massachusetts though would be my pick for Black Friday. Best ship to get out of Black Friday if you're interested in brawling battleships like I am. Tier 8, those up tiers you got to worry about, but I've mentioned that already, and it's up to you guys now. Let me know in the comments what you think about Massachusetts B, and thank you very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day.